All right, guys. So today we are going to be starting our college exploration unit. Um, During this unit, we're going to have some colleges that come in and talk to you guys about what they have to offer, kind of maybe what are some unique things that are different about them from other colleges that you might hear from, and then just what opportunities you would have um, with them at their schools. Okay. Just making sure you guys kind of start to understand what's available to you and what you need to be doing to set yourself up for success if you want to go to college. Okay. So I always start this conversation out in class with putting this screen up and asking kids, um, how many colleges do we know of in Nebraska? And we just make a list as large as we can. Um, so, always what comes up, well, there's the University of Nebraska, right? There's UNL. Um, there's actually four different university colleges. And it's not necessarily the important thing to distinguish. Like there's some that are like, for example, there's Doane University, right? It has university in its name. Just because university is in its name does not mean it's part of the university system. Okay, the university system is the University of Nebraska or the University of Florida, the University of Wisconsin. Okay, wherever it is. So for the University of Nebraska, we have four different um, schools. We have the University of Nebraska at Lincoln, at Kearney, at Omaha, and then we have University of Nebraska Medical Center, and there's a few different locations for that. Okay. Public schools are often also called state schools. So they are actually the university public and community are all public funded. Um, so they get quite a few tax dollars from the state and federal government. So public schools or state schools have a lot of similarities with the universities. They're just typically much smaller. Okay. So we have three public or state schools in Nebraska. The most popular one is Wayne State in Wayne, Nebraska, Chadron State in Chadron, Nebraska, and then Peru State in Peru, Nebraska. Okay. So it's just the name of the college with state after it, Chadron, Wayne, and Peru State. Okay, so state colleges. We have lots and lots of private colleges. Um, just down the road from us, we have Hastings College. I mentioned Doane University. Um, that is by far the largest list that we have. There's Midland University and Fremont. We could go on all the different private colleges that exist in um, Nebraska. And we'll see as we go through this and we get through presentations kind of what the differences in private school is. The biggest difference is just where they get their money. Excuse me. Um, and then private schools are typically much more expensive to attend. Um, but as they will tell you, Hastings College will tell you that they have quite a few scholarship opportunities that can lower that cost depending on um, what kind of things you've been involved with and what you've achieved in high school. Okay. Then the last is community, right? So university, public, and private are all 4-year schools. So you can get a bachelor's degree and sometimes more, master's degree or doctorate degrees. Okay. Um, but community or junior college is a 2-year college. Okay, so you get your associate's degree. So we have one right here in Grand Island, Central Community College. There's Southeast Community College and Milford and Lincoln. There's Northeast Community College and Norfolk. Okay, so we have a few different ones throughout the state. Okay, all right. So on this slide, it says Hastings College and UNK. That's going to be what we're learning about today. It really wouldn't matter what colleges are there. We change it a little bit from year to year. So the specific colleges that come to see us is not necessarily as important as understanding why we do this. Okay, so the first thing it says there is just to familiarize yourself with each school and just understand um, kind of what each one has to offer. Okay, each year that we do this, we have a university school come, we have a public or state school come, we have a private school come, and then we have a community school come. Okay, so we have at least one from each category that comes in those categories that I just talked about. We want to be able to effectively identify essential information about the school. And then most importantly, and why it's highlighted down there, is learn where and how to find that essential information. And where you're going to find it is on their college website. Okay. Not using Google. Okay. You could Google information as far as like, what is the tuition at UNK? And you may get the right answer. You may not get the right answer, right? Google is not always right. It's increasingly right with AI, but it's not always going to be right. And so the only way to ensure that you are definitely going to get the right answer is by going to UNK's website and finding their tuition page and looking what is the tuition for the upcoming school year. Okay. So it's not so much about knowing the information that you're going to be looking up. Okay. Even though we want to have a good idea of it. To me, it's much more important for you to know how to find the information. Okay. And find it on the college websites. Okay. So we always talk about there's 4 different ways that you can pay for college. Once again, if this were in class, I would see how many the students could get. So the first one is your money. Okay. And when we say your money, that could be money that you've saved up. Okay. That could be money from your parents or grandparents. Okay. So your money just means you're not borrowing it or getting it from somebody else like outside of your family. If you're paying for college with your money, there's no need to apply for anything or pay it back since it's already your money, right? The next one is grants. This is money that you must meet certain requirements for to be eligible for. That could be based off of income, that could be based off of ethnic background. There's a lot of different things that go into that. But if you apply for it and you meet the requirements and you are granted that money, that is free money that you do not have to pay back. There may be certain stipulations that you have to meet while you're in college, but you do not have to pay the money back. Scholarships is the next one. This is a pretty well-known way to pay for college. So this is money that you apply for through foundations, like we have our GIPS Foundation, which raises a ton of money each year, over $1 million for students each year in terms of scholarship money. Schools have scholarships that are directly through them, and then private donors, companies out in the community, things you're involved with, things like that. Okay. So the more things that you accomplish in high school and the more things that you're involved in, the more opportunities that you will have to earn these scholarships. Okay. And that shouldn't be any surprise to you because we've talked to you about that many times, whether it's your guidance counselor or your principal, social worker, that we want you to get involved, right? The grades are important. We calculate GPA all the time. We look at transcripts. We talk about all the clubs, sports, and activities that we have available to you. And that stuff is important. Okay. And so this is money, once again, that you do not have to pay back. Lastly, student loans. Okay. This is money that will be awarded through the FAFSA, the free application for financial aid, for student financial aid. It's through the federal government. There's a couple of different kinds of loans. Basically, after you graduate college, you will have to pay back those loans plus any interest that accrues over time. Okay, so you want to try to avoid taking out loans or at least minimize it if you can, even though a lot of people do end up having to use student loans. Okay. This diagram, this should look pretty familiar to you. So this is something that's just important to understand when you hear like the term college of. Okay, so you see this diagram. If you think of like the university, we'll just use the University of Nebraska at Lincoln, right? UNL. Okay, and so at UNL, I don't know how many college ofs that they have, but let's say they have a college of manufacturing, and they have a college of education, and they have a college of engineering. Okay, those aren't like separate colleges. Okay, those are just separate buildings that specialize in certain things, right? And then your majors here would like if we use education, you might have history and you might have elementary school and math and so on and so forth. Okay. So that diagram should look, sorry about that, should look very similar to what our academy model looks like. And we've talked about that before, that the way that our learning is set up with our academy model, that it is very similar to how a college structures their learning and that it's grouped accordingly. Okay. So the university name would be just like the name of our school, right? Your college ofs would be the names of the academies, and then your majors would be the same thing as pathways. Okay, so that's what I want you to think about when you hear those terms, that you can identify those things and make those correlations. Okay, all right. Now for the confusing part, I'll try to make it as minimally confusing as I can. So we're going to talk about how much college costs and how it's determined, and then a little bit as to why it's so important to um, get through school on time. Okay. So let's just say that cost per credit hour here um, is $100. Okay. And when I say cost per credit, basically what that means is when you go to take a college class, you don't just like if you need to sign up for a history class, they're not going to tell you, well, history class costs $200 and math costs $300. What they do is they assign credit hours to those classes. Okay. So math class might be 3 credit hour class. Okay. A science class with a lab, okay, like a biology class, and you have a lab with it, might be 4 credit hours. Okay. So they're basically determining how much time and effort you're going to have to be put into that class. They're going to assign a cost to a credit hour, and then you'll pay by that. Okay, so $100 would be really cheap. Okay, that would be somewhere along the lines of like a community college. Okay, but I'm going to use it just so it's a nice round number. Okay, so a typical college class is 3 credit hours. Okay, some will be more, some will be less. I would say at least 75% of classes, if not more, of the classes you would take in college are going to be 3 credit hour classes. Okay. So your average cost, if my goodness, I am struggling here. If it were $100 per credit hour, your average cost would be $300. Okay. Now, I am going to tell you, and I'm going to show you an example on the next screen here that um, you should be taking 30 credit hours a school year, okay? Even though you only need 24 credits a year, 12 per semester, to be considered a full-time college student. So basically what this is saying is that if you want to be considered a full-time college student, okay, which there's a lot of things in terms of like housing and taxes and things like that, the amount of loans that you can get, okay, on whether you're a part-time, half-time, full-time college student. Okay, so if we want to be a full-time college student, we need to take 24 credits a year, a school year. Okay, um, or 12 per semester. Okay, so if we take 12 credit hours and we say that on average 3 credit hours is one class, that means that you're taking 4 classes per semester. Okay, and that would be 8 a year. Okay, so but I'm telling you that you need to take 30. Okay, and here's why. In scenario one here, for a bachelor's degree, almost always it's 120 credits to graduate. Okay. To earn your bachelor's degree in whatever field you're going into. So for your in scenario one here, make sure I don't, yes. Okay. We are going to take 30 credit hours, okay, for each year. Okay. So 3, 6, 9, 12, right? 120, 30 credit hours times 4 years, 120. Okay. Um, your typical college class is 3 credits. Okay. So each year you need to take 10 classes. Now, that could look different depending on how you want to do it. Okay. You could, in the fall, you could take 5 classes. And then in the spring, you could take 5 classes, right? And then if they're all 3 credit hours, you've earned your 30 credits for the year that I'm telling you that you need. Okay. Um, you could take 4 classes in the fall. You could take 4 classes in the spring, and then you could take a couple of summer classes to get to 10. Okay. It really doesn't matter how you do it, but you need to get to that 30 credit hours. So if you do that, you will graduate in 4 years. Okay. Um, in this scenario, we still need 120 hours to graduate, but now we're going to take 24. Okay. So if we do 24 for each year that we do, and if I multiply that by 4 here, you can see I'm not at 120, right? I have to multiply that by 5 to get to my 120. Okay, so that's why we have a super senior year here. Okay, so you take 24 a year, still 3 credit hours per class, right? So now it would just be on average 8 classes a year because you're only taking 24 credits to get to your full-time status. So you take 4 in the fall, 4 in the spring, however you want to do it, right? Okay. Now it's going to take you 5 years to graduate. Okay. Now here's a big deal with that. Okay. Because that is a really big deal. The first question I would ask you is does it cost the student that went to school 5 years more money in tuition than the student that graduated on time in 4 years? Okay. The answer is no. All right. And every year I do this, I get students that say, yes, it will cost them more money. Now, you could argue like it costs them more for like room and board, right? For their dorm room or anything else. I'm just talking about tuition, right? Just talking about the credit hours. Well, we said both scenarios is 120, right? So no matter what the cost per credit hour is, you multiply that by 120, whether you completed it in 4 years or 5 years, you did not spend more money on your tuition. Okay. So that's not the issue. Here is the issue. If those two people, okay, one person, student A, in scenario one here is going to be a teacher, and scenario two is going to be a teacher. Okay. So they're going to the same exact field. That 5th year that second student is going to college and still working on their college degree, that teacher that completed their college degree in 4 years is going to make whatever amount of money they're going to make in the first year, right? Maybe we'll say they make $50,000 in their first year of teaching. Will that second student that took 5 years to graduate, will they ever be able to recoup that $50,000 that they lost out on? And the answer is no. You absolutely can't, right? You can say, well, they might end up getting a better paying job, or they might do this or that. It doesn't matter. They spend an extra year at college, right? We only have so many years of our life, right? So there's not like you get to add an extra year at the end. You're going to be alive for however many years you're going to be alive, and you're going to work for however many years it is until retirement. Okay. So you can never get back that year of earnings that you lost by being in college for an extra year that you shouldn't have been in. Okay. So $50,000 or whatever it is, right? That's on the low end. A lot of careers you would probably make more than that in your first year with a college degree. That's a lot of money to lose out on because you did not take the correct amount of credits each year in college to make sure that you graduated on time. Okay. So if you're going to school to get a bachelor's degree, that bachelor's degree should take 4 years. It cannot take 5 years. You're going to cost yourself tens and tens and tens of thousands of dollars. Okay. It's going to be an expensive decision. So we do not want that. So as we start researching, now that we understand some things about college and how it works, and we have a little bit of foundational knowledge, as we start researching these, you are going to locate where the college websites are. Okay. It's provided on the slide for you. And you are going to use those websites to go through and look to see how much of the answers you can find. Here we go. On your worksheet. Okay. So we'll do a paper copy of the worksheet. Some of the questions are pretty easy. Some are going to be a little bit tougher, but you can see right here it says that you need to use the college website to find your answers. Do not just Google the answers. So you're going to try to find things like where is it located and when was it founded and how many years has it been around. This one, it tells you can use Google. Okay. So this one's a little bit different. This one, okay, so that scenario I just gave you with tuition and you're taking 30 credit hours a year, you're going to try to find the tuition per year. So I'll give you a quick example on this one, and then we're going to wrap this up here. So on tuition, and there is a front and back to this, okay, so there's plenty of things that you need to find to keep you busy. So I'll look at UNK's here, okay? So I'm going to open up UNK's website. It wouldn't really matter which one I chose or if it was a different college on there. Now, the thing you need to understand about this, you could sit here and say, well, yeah, but I don't know where to go. Okay. You're not going to break their website. Try. Okay. If I go to academics and education and okay, there's nothing about tuition, guess what? There's this cool thing called a back button. And you can just go back to where you were, or you can still use their menus up here. Okay. Usually there's like a bigger menu, a smaller sub menu here. Sometimes at the bottom, there's another menu down here to use. Okay. So you have lots of resources. So I know where I need to go. Okay. So I want to go to admissions and I want to go to cost. Okay. So for a Nebraska resident, which we are, okay, we're only looking at tuition, okay. It says that the total cost is $6,690. Okay, now let's see. That is based off of 15 credit hours per semester. That's what we want, right? 15 times 2 semesters is 30 credit hours. So that's important to know if they're basing that off of full-time status at 24 credits or if they're basing it off of 30 credits. Okay. So it's basing it off of 30 credits. All right. So rid of that. So I don't know the cost per credit, but I do know the total tuition, okay, for the year. So all I need to do, instead of taking the cost per credit and multiplying it by 30 to find the big number, I have the big number already, 6,690. So I'm going to take that. I'm going to divide it by 30, and it's 223. So I would, on my worksheet here, I would put 223 times 30 equals that 6,690. Okay. So that's how that looks. So you guys are going to have to work a little bit to find those things. Sometimes it'll give you the smaller number. Sometimes it'll give you the bigger number. You're going to have to do some work in finding it. Okay. Otherwise, the rest of the information you just need to look around for and do your best to find it. Like I said, finding the information is more important than actually memorizing and knowing the information. Okay. Best of luck.